Assemble a strike team! A continental Soviet Union is our destiny!
Okay.
Meet our newest officer. According to this profile, you should prove useful.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Stalin. I mean, I know I'm an art, like, I do a little architect, I do that. I think you're talking about my videos, aren't I?
I would like to see that profile.
Give the lieutenant something important to do.
Well, a new tank just came out. I can review that. It is part of the Soviet Union kind of thing, so get started. So, Object 703-2. I'm just going to call it the version 2 black to make it short because it is a long, long name. And to be honest with you, this tank is very whole. I mean, it's very whole. It's very whole. Do you understand where I get at? When I first heard this to come out, before we get into this, when I first heard this when it came out, I was baffled. As a matter of fact, I made a little scene for you how it was when my friend had to tell me that one of the black tanks with the double barrel was coming out.
What is so important you interrupt a private briefing, Gradenko? Waste our time with magic shows.
9, Comrade Fury. This is a real tank. No jokes, no magic tricks.
Show me again. I want it. I want it. Comrade, how? I am surrounded by idiots. Do whatever it takes. Steal it. Take it from them. Nadia, tell your spies I want detailed plans.
Yeah, I was traumatized and interested at the same time. But here we are. The first ever black tank that is a double barrel. Now, of course, I know what you're all going to say. Well, there was 2 black tanks, and yes, I'm only was able to review one of them, which is right now. I don't think I have time for the other one. But what would you rather see? A Cold War tank that has a single shot that's basically what you see in every single tank, but it's just black with earnings? Yes, it's the first ever Cold War. Or would you rather see the first ever in console version of double barrels? And there's no way to get around this bush. I had to talk about this. Holy Hannah, is this tank. I'm getting ahead of myself, but, well, let's just see. But you're probably wondering yourself, well, Fury, you're getting overhyped with this. You're sounding like it's a great tank. That means it should be to buy. I should be like Stalin right here.
I must have it.
To understand, I like the tank, but it's not suitable for everybody. And matter of fact, a lot of people are not playing it right now due to the fact that, well, we'll get to that in a minute. But is it really worth it? Is it really a god tier amongst 2? Short answer, I want to say no, but kinda yes. What do I mean by that? Well, let's buckle ourselves in. Let's get started. So, first thing we're going to do is review its armaments. Now, when we go to the armaments real quick, you can honestly already tell this thing has not bad armor. I'm not going to give it an every single detail on this tank, but it's not too bad. Now, it does have a little turret ring underneath it, which I will point to it, which is a weak spot. The upper top of the tank, if it's looking downwards, that rooftop is a weak spot, just like most Soviet tanks that have a triangle or rounded shaped heads. They usually have an upward, if someone shoots down at it, it's a problem. So, you're probably wondering, well, what kind of design is this? Well, it's got the Scourge's body, as you can already tell, with some few interesting details. Like, first and foremost, we have to talk about the side head turret. Now, granted, looking at a target should be good, but unfortunately, however, I don't know why it has a hard time with this, but every time my friend, even Frankie, he has one too. when you look a little bit slightly away, you'll get pen. And it makes sense because if you look closely, all that green and yellow stripes, it's not really flat armor, but it's bulky enough to pen. If you hit it right here, there's a good chance of penning it sometimes if he's looking like this. But directly at it, like if you're looking at it with the guns pointing directly at you, yeah, it's very hard to pen it, but I don't know. And not to mention, the one thing that it suffers heavily most to is goddamn heat rounds. This thing suffers against heat really, 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 really bad. Yeah, it's one of those tanks that cannot take a heat round. So for those who want to kill it, you're going to have to load heat if you have a pen over, I would say, 290. Because the whole armor of the tank, even angled, has a little bit of a slope armor to it. So you got 140 millimeters of armor. That's quite a lot of armor for the upper plate. However, with heat, with an angle piece, it still can harm it pretty bad. Not to mention, it has another weak spot, which is weird because it doesn't show it on the blueprint paper because it's flat. It's like you see it flat like this, but if you go to appearance real quick, I'll show you. There's a little square index box, like I'll point to it right here, that shows it. So I usually get hit there a lot. I get penned sometimes. So wargaming, is it motherfucking armor that is slope angle and that's a delusion, or is it actual armor that I have to worry about and it's the same millimeters but it's more flatter? Which I'm gonna say right now, for anyone who shoots AP or APCR, shoot that spot because that spot is very, very vulnerable to that. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it pens easily. So keep that in mind for anyone. So most of the time you're gonna have to angle, but angling the tank, yeah. I mean, it's a Soviet IS thing. Angling is a real problem. So my advice is to angle it like 10 degrees. Just angle slightly, but not a lot. That's what I gotta say. Oh, there is another thing, because most people don't know this. This is spatial armaments. Now, according to my friend Frankie, it doesn't work for him, but it works for me a lot for some strange reason. That AP shells, if you shoot this upper thing, it bounces or it doesn't pen. Why? Because if you look closely at the... Hang on, I gotta find... There it is. See that? That's inside that bubble shield. So it's literally an illusion of a bubble shield. So the only way to pen it is to shoot it through the tracks, which is basically like you gotta see it in the open. If he's hold down with that armor sticking up, AP and APCR is gonna have a hard time penning that because it's like double layer armor. So yeah. So that's the armaments. So I gotta say, for a heavy tank, despite the fact that it suffers some, not a bad setup here. I mean, granted, if you play Soviet Union aggressive tanks, this thing has the armaments to be aggressive.
And I'm gonna say this one thing quick. If he's on your team and you try to think, oh, maybe I'll drive away and not bother helping him. No, I only got one thing to say. If it's on your team, this black tank,
You guard them with your life.
However, that's what's not makes it the most terrifying to my eyes. The most terrifying part, to be honest with you, is its mother fricking gun.
No matter how many we kill, they keep coming.
Well, believe it or not, this is a 122 millimeter cannon, but I thought it was 130 because the way how it acted. And yes, it is a double rapid fire gun. that you change your shells from your standard gun to your other gun, or you can fire both at the same time. And I'm going to say this right now, guys. I'm going to say this right now. You do not ignore this gun. I'm going to tell you this right now. If this tank sees you, do not ignore it. Otherwise, Frankie will show you why this poor IS-3 was not paying attention that cost him his game. Poor, stupid bastard. This thing is not bad at reloading, which is really terrifying. You have to understand that the fact is that you have twin guns that you can fire differently or together at 10 minutes. For my good crew, I got it down to a 10.45. That is insane, because once you're reloading your one gun, your other gun's reloading halfway when you fire it, and then when you fire it, you've got half the time to wait for that other side to fire. It is ridiculous. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm going to say this right now. If you're a tier 7, if you're a tier 6, you're not going to survive against this tank. I mean, granted, yes, there is one thing you can outbeat it, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to tell you this right now, people. If you see this tank, you cannot not stand against it alone or be a low tier to stand against it. I am not joking. This is a tank that is not to mess with, and I'll talk about my personal opinion, but I'm telling you this right now. If you're a 6 or 7, you're just, well, here's the best way to describe it if you actually are a 6 or a 7 fighting this. I'm not joking when I show you this. This is going to terrify you. Yeah, that's how it feels when you're fighting against 6 or 7s. Now, granted, yes, you're going to say, well, 6 and 7s can't really fight 8's Fury, so of course they're going to get slaughtered by, like, Vader being that. But trust me when I say this. Most 8s you can fight with your 6 and 7s if you outsmart them and you have help. I get that. That I don't agree with Wargaming saying that there's, 2 plus minus 2 matchmaking. I don't agree with it at all, but you can do it still, especially at KV2. But this tank, however, can delete a 6 in one straight combo. It can half health a tier 7 really quick. Not to mention the reloading on that tank is not bad. That is like almost par as an 88 reloading gun. Yeah, a Tiger 88's reloading gun. Think about that for a second. A tank that does tremendous amount of damage, which we're going to get to right now, and hitting you 10 seconds and then firing 5 seconds afterwards to reload and hit you with the second gun, you're already half health. And then when the time you realize you're on half health, the other gun that fired you first is going to be reloaded and hit you back, and then you're going to be realizing, oh shit, and then dead. Just literally that combo. I am not joking. When I was in my last stand tank against so many people, like numerous of times, I get like so much, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll talk about that in the personal thing. Accuracy at 100 meters, 0.35. Holy crap, guys. I'm not going to, like, I usually made fun of the Soviet Union saying that they're inaccurate as frig from range. But not this tank. This tank actually is decent. If you put like vertical stabilizers on this thing and a good crew, holy Hannah, this becomes a sniper. Like, ridiculously that good. But there is a problem with it. We'll get to it when bites the tongue with that. Now, damage is 390. The average roll I done is like 370. Now, you might think that's not a lot for a shot, but think about it, you're firing 2 guns. And there's a mode where you could fire all of them, so times that by 2, what I just said, 370 times 2, and yeah, that's how much damage when you fire all of your shots. This is terrifying. But penetration at 100 meters is 221. It's a little bit bad. But so far when I played this tank, I didn't feel really bad about its pending gun. Because, honestly, it doesn't feel that bad. I mean, it's like close to a 90 mils pen, but to be honest, it's better than most tanks I saw nowadays with that kind of pen. Even worse. I'm looking at you, Leon Russ. But anyway, my point is, at least it's tolerable. But for sniping 500 meters away, which is 5 grids over on a mini-map, is 202. So you lose like pretty much 18 points of your, well, not 18, like 20, I think like 21, 22? I don't know. But you lose like a good like 20% of your millimeter pens, which is not good. So, yeah, even though despite the fact it's not good at sniping, it's not good against sniping against super heavily armored tanks, but it does do the job against mediums and light armor vehicles. So, yeah, it's not bad. Like, the penetration I have no problem with. Now, ammo types, APCR, heat, and HE, high explosives. We'll get to the pricing of that in a minute, and that's another problem of mine. I forgot to mention this part, too, that is a problem with this gun. First and foremost, there's no gun depression easily on this tank. Obviously, no surprise. It's a Soviet tank. But the problem that I have with it is people think they're heavily armored and try to move up. Like, you do not want to do this. You don't want to be a tank that you're fighting up a hill. Yes, you can have elevation in it, but if they're in a good position where you can't hit them, but they can hit you, try to get out of there. Like, honestly, you do not want to do this, because if you try to reach that hill and try to aim down, they're going to shoot you. Kind of like this show sum up what it's like if you try to do that.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
Yeah, never take the high ground from a fucking Death Star or anything. They're like Obi-Wan Kenobis. The other problems I have with this tank, like, I think in my personal opinion, is the actual HP. Now, 1,500 doesn't seem too bad if you play this right, like I do a lot. You can hold down in it and you can actually take some shots. Hell, by the time someone takes a shot at you, they're almost dead themselves with these double bad boys guns on it. So I don't find it too much of a problem, but it's noticeable when you get into high tiers of how low your health is. Speed is only 38. This thing goes average. It's not fast. It's not slow. And then viewing range. This is the part where we're going to talk bad about it. I have a fully maxed out crew. I have the binoculars as equipment. I have ventilations. I even have combat rigs of equipment or consumables on this tank to make it the best I could show, that the highest you can go. And what do I get is 458 meters of viewing range. Ooh, that's where it kills it the most. You need to have eyes, people. There is no way that there's no way you can 1v1 someone who can outsnipe. And this is the Achilles heel, the horseshoe, broken horseshoe on this pretty much tank, the weakness.
Condemn them to hell.
Now you're probably going to say, well, Fury, it's meant to be a combat close quarters tank. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. There's some holes in that story that I don't like when other people say about this tank, but we'll get to that in a minute. But for now, viewing range sucks. You have to rely on people to spot for you, which I did modify the single range, and that's the highest too. I have the perk that gives me better signal range, and look at that. It's only 808.47. That is horrible. Now I get it that many people said, like I just said a few minutes ago, it's meant to brawl, so why would you need that much? I'll get to that in my personal review, but let's just talk about other things. So now let's talk about the ammunition, which is basically, I have to explain two things because one, my friend stupidly did, and I'm not talking about you, Frankie. I'm talking about someone else, and I'm not going to mention who because he's a close friend of mine, and I don't want to insult him. But let's talk about it. So, on paper that you see before you buy this tank, it's going to say 20 rounds. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a lie. That is 100% pure lie. Now, I know what you're saying. Yes, in one barrel, it is 20. So, I'm not saying like 100% is a lie, but it's still a lie. Because this has 20, but the other gun has 20. So really, in total, you have 40 rounds, which is a big difference when compared to what it said on paper. So, yeah, that's the thing. But here's the second part, and this is, I know you guys already know this, but I'm just going to say it because he did it and I had to correct him, and I'm afraid other people will do the same thing. My friend did this. He put high explosives, all 20, in one side of the gun, and then put 15 APCR in one barrel and heat, thinking that it was part of the same caliber gun that he could swap to each side. I know what you're all going to say. This is why I keep his name out, and to be fair, it was his first double barrel. Don't call it negligence on it. But that is not how it works, as you could already tell. Do not put just one type of ammunition on one side and then another shell on the other. Why? Because they're charged on both guns. So if you want premium in both barrels, you're going to have to times it by 2 when you fire these guns. And what do you mean by that? Well, let's finally talk about the price. Now, we did talk about the APCR. We already talked about it. Now, explain this to me, Wargaming. Explain to me. Since if you're going to throw in the argument that this is just the first gun and this for Charlotte, how come the penetration at 500 meters on paper says 202, but if you look at the shell that is supposed to be the same, is completely different, because at 500 meters it's 193. Kind of a big slight misinterpretation there, eh? I mean, that's just saying you're going to battle with an iron sword and instead it was a stick. I mean, granted, this gun, you barely notice it sometimes unless you're targeting super heavily armored tanks. So, granted, I'm not dissing the ammo thing, but I don't know how this paper thing works. It used to follow the same thing as the stat papers you see, but I guess not anymore. It's way different, apparently. So, if Wargaming, if that's an error, please fix it. And only that, because we'll get to the topic, like, I don't want them to do anything else, but yeah, we'll see that in a minute. So, armaments damage, we already talked about that. The only thing we didn't talk about is speed, because this is an APCR round. Great, the first standard round gun is APCR. Great, good for long distance, fast projectile, good at hitting hard targets with this. Not bad. However, though, if it's angling or has a slight angle interpretation, APCR is very hard to pen with it sometimes too. However, the premium shell, on the other hand, 5,200 a shell, is heat, which fixes a lot of problems if you're sniping. At 100 meters, 270, 500 meters, 270. Makes sense. However, though, your speed drastically reduces to 820. Makes sense because you're firing a bigger shell, which is AP and high explosive kind of way. However, though, you would think 5,200 is not bad, and thank God this is a black tank, because black tanks make a little bit more with their money earnings and their XP earnings, which, good God, yeah. But you fire 2 of them, and the same goes to this round, and the same goes to the last one when we get to that point. You have to times these by 2 when you're firing these damn guns. So when you're firing heat, and only heat out of those 2 barrels, you're not paying 5,200. No, you're paying 10,400 when you fire both of them. That is a lot of money. And it makes kind of sense with how much damage and killing it does, but my God, you do not want to spam nothing but that. You will go into negatives if you fired all 20 rounds of heat. You would be in so much debt. I don't know, maybe the way how Wargaming is generous with their money, it's just, ugh. Anyway, sorry, not trying to drag it on. Okay, let's talk about this tank, because holy Hannah, there is a lot to talk about here, and I'm playing this game with my boy Frankie. Ocean tried to join in as well, but Ocean couldn't because, well, he had schoolwork. That's fair enough, but I wanted to get this done. So, this tank is a goddamn nightmare to face against. I mean, granted, yes, it's got some major weak problems, but just having the gun change its damn firing mechanism is absurd. But I forgot to tell you this, guys, for the gun itself that I was starting off of. The way how it reloads is you can't fire your primary gun like that. What do you mean by that? Well, you see the reloading in the middle of the screen. That is basically your reloading of 2 guns. So when you fire your gun, it starts to reload. So as long as you don't fire both of them at the same time or fire them really quick, you would always have a gun reloading. You can't just go blah, 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 blah. No, it goes like blah, wait a few minutes, blah. But don't blap at all until the second one starts the reloading. So basically, you want to wait until your gun is starting to reload the other shell before firing the next one. That's why it's so cancerous. Because literally, the minute you fire your gun and you do that, you can have it where you fire your gun and you only have to wait only a little bit of time instead of the 10 seconds that I have to fire the next one. That is insane. So instead of like having 10, it's like almost 8 per second to fire this gun. Like 8-minute, not like thing. But it's like terrifying. And the fact is that it does change multiple ways of firing this gun is amazing to me. Like the Nemesis review I've done, I like a tank that keeps the enemy on guard, kind of makes them stay put. But, however, and I'll talk about it at the end in the final verdict because I want to show, like, another thing. I got some scares about this tank. But, however, though, let's talk about what it is now. But it's also very terrifying, and what makes me scared about it the most. I have, like, seen so many games now where me and Frankie had so many Brotherhood of Arms medals, and also so many Top Gun medals that I have not seen in a long time. Now, that granted, I'm not saying that I'm not a great player, but I'm not like below, like very below average players. I'm not down there. I'm considered apparently a Unicon player since that's how the matchmaking works, since I'm always on the top of the screen. But having Top Gun, like, for those who don't know Top Gun is like when you kill 6 enemies in a game. This thing does it very easily, because why? People charge you, thinking that, oh, you got only a 10-second reload or whatever, you're not going to be a threat. Yeah, but remember, I can fire both my guns and do twice as more damage, and like, I'm basically the American Tier 10 TD in the front lines if I use both my guns. If I fire both of them, it does the same equal amount of damage as a goddamn Tier 10, you know, the E4 TD tank destroyer. I'm not joking. That is beyond cancerous. And the fact that it has also the switch to a single shots can also throw the enemy off guard of the reloading. And that's what's making me get so many Top Gun medals and so many Brotherhood of Arms medals with Frankie when he's playing his, because nobody cannot predict that reloading. I've seen so many tanks charge at us, like you're seeing in this video, so many tanks charging at us and not realizing that we have that gimmick mechanic to where we can devastate people. My advice, if you want to try to take on this tank, like I said, kill it at range. You gotta outspot it. Like, it's got horrible viewing range, so if it's by itself, you can outspot it and kill it. But if he sees you, it doesn't mean he doesn't have an accurate gun to shoot you. And that's what's funny about this tank, really, if you think about it. It's got an accurate gun, but it's got, like, no penetration ability against super heavy tanks and no viewing range. Explain that one to me, Wargaming. But don't change it, because I'll talk that at the end. But the fact is that this tank is very super fun. I had fun with it, but only if you're a heavy playing tank player. Now, granted, the thing I said also before we wrap it up and talk about the final verdict is when I said about frontlining, I said maybe, because the fact is you're not invincible. There's a lot of weak spots on this tank that could be easily penned and exploited to the enemy. So my advice too is just stay mid-range, keep the enemy like a good, like, pretend it's COVID, keep it 6 feet away from you. Just keep it a couple of feet away from you. Do not let it get really close to you. And as a matter of fact, if he gets dumb enough to get close by himself, you can just wail on him with the double guns. I mean, it's giving tier 10s a run of their money. Alright, battle's about to be almost done here. I didn't talk much about the personal thing. I'll maybe do it at the final verdict, but I'll see you guys back at the garage. So, final verdict on the Object 703-2 Black. Now, I had to hold back on some of the review, personal thing, because it was a short game, and plus, I didn't want to make the video too long, so I'll try to make this quick. I'm terrified if some people own it. Not because of a broken tank. I don't mind a challenge, and people should not mind a challenge too. That's what makes it better at the game. The amount of gold and how much you have to pay for this, literally, only 7,700 for this black tank alone is, like, baffling to me. How good the accuracy is sometimes. The pending gun, the double gun, the actual reloading mechanic, if you actually know how to use it properly, is terrifying. Now, the reloading is confusing at first, but still, you get used to it after a while. But here's my problem. Because of the fact that it feels too good, and you can actually harm a lot of tier 10s, because, like I said, combined shots you do equals to a tier 10 E4's damage. I'm scared that Wargaming is going to nerf this. I mean, you could see them doing it. They have done it in the past. They're going to probably say, like, this tank is too accurate, too armored, too fucking heavily damaged, too fucking aim speed, and I'm afraid it's going to get nerfed. And I'm scared because this is going to how the community is going to act when they see this beloved tank being nerfed.
This was not to happen. Now what we have is a pile of death. You are to blame. Take him out and shoot him.
Well said, Stalin. And I know they're going to not nerf it now. You're probably going to say, well, this is the next week, Tuesday, and it's already almost done since you're putting out this video late, which I do apologize, but it's harder for me to do tank reviews because of the fact of my timing. It's the thing I'm scared about. Once it's gone, they're going to nerf it, and then how bad is it going to be nerfed? Because everything around it's perfect. It's got a very weak spot. I mean, you can't see far, you can't speed up far. I mean, tier 10s and 9s can easily kill this tank. So, it's just, I hope to dear God that they won't nerf it completely when that happens. Maybe I'll make a video when that happens, but anyway, back to the topic. I just wanted to say that because that's going to affect my future on this tank. Is it worth it? If you're a heavy tank player, it's not just only worth it if you want to play Soviet tanks. That's a 2+. But it also makes 175 XP more. That is insanely good. That means that can help you with season pass events. That helps you for earning Well, there's no season pass right now, but that would help you earn ops. That would help you earn things. That's what I love about black tanks. They earn enough XP. They help you in the season pass. Unlike warships, where you have to only complete the challenge to get far into the season pass. I hope you can hear me, dickheads, because it gets fucking annoying. I'm sorry. But my point is, it's worth it if you're grinding season passes and all the other thing for events, challenges, and stuff for earning XP. It's really a good pickup. See, so what do I rate it as? Well, it plays in the tier 10s. That sucks. It pretty much has no viewing range. That sucks. But it has a lot of positives. So I would give it a 7 out of 10. So that's my final verdict on the black tank. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the other Cold War tank. I might do it later on because it is an interesting tank. But however, it will be gone by the store by then. And also, it's okay. It's not like, if you want really my honest opinion, it's not bad. But it's one of those hard playing tanks, which is sad to say because I've been spoiled by the World War II version, which I would recommend it for any high, Soviet play-style tankers out there who love a double-barrel version of pretty much an, stockade kind of version, but with a better thing. So, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you, comrades, in the next video. Take care, guys.